Good afternoon. If we can try to get our seats, we need to start relatively on time and keep the program moving so we can get you out of here on time. We have a wonderful program for you today. I'm Grace Galucci. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Northeast Ohio Areawide Coordinating Agency, or NOACA. Welcome to NOACA's 2025 Annual Meeting and Luncheon. We're pleased you could join us today to hear about the great things we're doing as a planning agency. We have a full and informative program for you today that speaks to our theme, collaborative innovation. Building a future of connections. Our guest speakers today will join on stage for a panel discussion on the state of our region's maritime industry, infrastructure, waterway connectivity, investment needs, economic development, and sustainability. That's a lot, which is why we need all the time that we have today. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize some very important people. First, I want to recognize and thank the NOACA Board of Directors for their dedicated service. Thank you for your vision and leadership, which allows us to be here today to celebrate our accomplishments. I've never had, and always grateful to currently have, such a group of hardworking elected and public officials who really care about making their communities in our region a better place to be. I believe that we are stronger when we work together, and this board exemplifies the best of the best. NOACA board members and alternates, please stand up, and then let's give them a round of applause. We have a board of 48 elected and appointed public officials. I would like to single out and thank Cuyahoga County Executive Chris Ronayne, who serves as our board president, as well as the entire executive committee for their support, direction, and leadership in moving the agency forward. Thank you. Next, I would like to recognize the other elected officials in the room, as well as members of NOACA's subcommittees and councils who are here today and spend countless and sometimes thankless hours, but have unbounded energy to contribute that helps shape our agenda and our work. We thank you for your dedication to NOACA and to the region. Please stand up and be recognized. By the time I get through this, you all will have stood up at least once. I would lastly, but certainly not leastly, like to thank NOACA staff who demonstrate a passion for planning. Your commitment and your professionalism are nothing but exceptional every day, every week, and every year, especially this last one. I am humbled and honored to work with you. One more time, staff, stand up and let's give them a round of applause. These are the folks you work with day in and day out and that do all the heavy lifting. And actually, this is one more thanking that I want to do, and that's to our many sponsors who I think, our sponsors who help make this day possible. We celebrate and thank you for your generous support. So those of you who are our sponsors, please stand up and take a round of applause. And again, to everyone, thank you for joining us here today. And with that, I welcome you to enjoy your lunch and the company of those at your table, and we will resume the program shortly. Welcome back. Keep enjoying your lunch, and let's thank the staff of the Convention Center for the excellent service they've provided us. And before we continue, I do want to pause and again recognize our generous sponsors. And I want to point out that our sponsors are not just faceless corporations or big public agencies. They're actual people who live and work in our communities alongside us. They care about this region, and they partner with us to make it better. At your seats, inside your boat tote, you will find NOACA's 2025 Annual Report. Collaborative innovation, building a future of connections. That phrase is more than a headline. It's our daily practice. Collaboration is the secret sauce of NOACA. It's how we build our communities, keep our economy resilient, and our opportunities growing. And when you look back at this past year, one thing is clear. Together, we turned bold ideas into visible, measurable change. One of the biggest milestones was the board adoption of We NEO 2050 Plus, our updated long-range plan. This is not just a planning document, it is a shared vision built through thousands of conversations, community workshops, and data-driven transportation scenario planning. We NEO 2050 Plus connects housing, transportation, land use, and environmental priorities into one roadmap, just like GPS. We NEO 2050 is not just NOACA's plan, it belongs to all of us. It reflects the aspirations of residents, leaders, and planning partners across the region. And most importantly, it charts a path where growth and opportunity are shared and where our region completes and thrives for decades to come. So how did we do it? We listened directly to our communities. For the first time in more than a decade, we had participation by 8,000 households in our NOACA Household Travel Survey. The data is already helping us shape smarter investments that connect people to jobs, schools, healthcare, and opportunity. It's insight that ensures our plans aren't just technically sound, but also human-centered. And of course, planning means nothing without the dollars behind it. We know and we understand, for many of you, NOACA is all about the money. We focus you then on the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. The TIP lays out how transportation funding, federal funds in particular, reach Northeast Ohio projects. This past year, with federal, state, and local funds, the NOACA board approved more than $1.8 billion. That's right, $1.8 billion for projects in Cuyahoga, Cuyahoga, Lake, Lorain, and Medina counties. That's not pocket change. That's real money. Which makes this a really good time to thank our federal congressional delegation, both in the House and in the Senate, the state legislature, House and Senate, the governor and his team at ODOT, as well as the elected officials at the local level for helping us to bring home the bacon. These are not just line items in a spreadsheet when we talk about that kind of money. They are tangible enhancements to the road network, as you would expect, but also reflect walking and biking trails in neighborhoods, safer intersections, upgraded transit fleets, and can even be characterized as economic lifelines for communities. A perfect example, we just completed the Regional Metro Parks Trails Connectivity Study, a 25-year vision built with all 5 of our park systems, and its goal is very simple, but yet profound. The message is parks are more than about recreation. They too are about connecting people, creating healthier and safer communities, and making our region more livable. It's also about economic development. Better integrating our neighborhoods and our parks creates real value. And that's what NOACA does, brings real value to our region. We all know the saying, it takes a village. Well, in our case, it takes 5 counties and a lot of committed partners. This year, with our regional IIJA strategy, NOACA helped local governments, transit agencies, and community partners secure more than $433 million in discretionary grant funding through the IIJA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and other funding sources. So that's nearly $500 million more than we are given as part of our formula funding. That money also is not abstract. It's funding for safer bridges, replacing aging buses with cleaner electric fleets, repairing roadways, expanding pedestrian access right here at home, and of course, a lot of work on the assets of the region like the Cleveland lakefront. Every dollar not just represents concrete and steel, but a stronger economy, safer travel, and cleaner air for the people we serve. Environmental planning, in addition to transportation planning, is another one of our pillars. This year, in participation with the City of Cleveland's Office of Sustainability and Climate Justice, NOACA completed a comprehensive climate action plan. And the best part of it is, of course, in addition to having a plan that helps us meet the targets to bring us to zero emissions by 2050, but the next best part of it, maybe I should say, is that although it is a truly regional or regionally scaled blueprint, and it is, of course, very important work, ownership of implementation does not rest with NOACA. So yes, you heard me right say that that's a good thing. And I'm not just saying that because it will make my job easier, although it will very much make my job easier. I say that because control remains with local elected officials, where it should be. It remains with private businesses, where it should be. And it remains with private individuals, where it should be, to determine which or if any of the ideas make sense for them and their communities to initiate. You, the people, get to decide through your way of participating in your communities what works for you, not NOACA. I was thinking of another analogy, and I thought of this yesterday, and I erased it about 3 times, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's like NOACA prepared the cookbook. We came up with a book, put all the recipes in there, different types of food and meal, all that, but we are not going to buy your groceries and go to your house and cook your dinner. That's up to you, what you like, what you don't like, and how you do that. Another leap forward, yeah, it didn't land so well. That's kind of what I thought and why I erased it 3 times, but I thought I'd try it out anyway. What is there if there's not a little risk? Another leap forward was the launch of Phase 2 of our EV charging station program and near completion of Phase 1. Together, we are building a regional charging network. We're becoming a leader in the future of clean energy mobility to establish over 300 charging points at 118 sites across the 5 counties. About 28% of them are now complete. and more coming online. And there's so many more planning and funding accomplishments, but I will let you read all about them in the annual report so we have time for our wonderful panel. But I want you to think about, as you read the book, progress on Irish Town Bend, the Aerozone Teddy, the TLCI projects, Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund, CMAQ projects, and again, so much more. And I'll leave you with a couple of things. One is we're redefining how NOACA shows up in the community and for the community. From expanded brand management to Net Zero Cool initiative, including the new mural on our Superior Avenue building, our presence is no longer just in policy papers, or even just in bricks and mortars that are projects. But we are visible in the very neighborhoods that we serve. Our building is becoming a symbol of creativity, resilience, and connection, and will stand as a backdrop to the future Superior Midway project, which we funded, and a gateway to the Central Business District. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. And I want to be clear, none of this progress happened alone. It reflects thousands of conversations, dozens of partnerships, and one shared belief that every connection matters. As your metropolitan planning organization, NOACA stands at the intersection of planning and funding. Our job is to ensure that Northeast Ohio gets its fair share of federal dollars. But more than that, our responsibility is to channel those dollars into investments that create a stronger, fairer, and more connected region. And we take those decisions very seriously. Decisions that are made by our board of elected and appointed officials. At the board level, I mentioned we have 48 members. The board membership is so complex that we created a formula to try to get it as fair and representative as possible. Why? Because democracy matters, and to ensure that each of the region's 2.1 million people, that all of their voices are heard. Looking ahead, the road is full of opportunity, and we are ready to travel it together, faster, farther, and with more purpose. On behalf of NOACA, I want to thank our board, our staff, our partners, and the people of Northeast Ohio. Your trust and energy inspire us. Together, we're turning bold ideas into everyday realities and everyday connections into the future we all share. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce our captain for the second half of the program. Actually, more like the second two-thirds, or the two-thirds of the program, Cuyahoga County Executive and NOACA Board President, Chris Ronayne.
Thank you, Grace. I'm going to give this back to you here, Grace. I got one just like this. Grace, there you go. How's everybody this afternoon? Well, welcome to the Huntington Convention Center, and glad to have you here in the Cuyahoga House. But I want to say to my colleagues in the five-county region, welcome, and thank you for welcoming us this past year. Two of the really great moments, being the board chair, and I'm sure our board agrees, was being out in the field and seeing first at Lorain Community College, what's happening out in Lorain Community, out in Lorain County itself, and second, out in Lake County. Appreciated both Mentor High School in the case of Lake County and our Lorain County Community College hosting us. We look to see that we have that show on the road, and we'll be out in Geauga and Medina, but it's good to have you here in Cuyahoga today. And I just want to say we learned a lot. I also want to say to my Lake County partners who made me wear, Morris, a Mentor Cardinals t-shirt upon the loss to St. Ignatius, my son's high school, to your kids' school system. We took the loss, but I have worn, Lake County friends, I have worn that Lake County Mentor t-shirt over and over again here in Cuyahoga County. So regionalism is at work, all right? All right. I want to say it is great to be talking about the water today. We've got a group of panelists I'm going to bring up in a minute. I'm going to queue up our slides and talk a little bit about what's happening here kind of regionally. But before we go further, I do want to say again, thank you for the wonderful team here at Cuyahoga County that served us today and for the hands that prepared the food. If you give it one more shout out, we appreciate you guys. To our sound and AV folks, I want to let everybody know I was on live mic the entire time, so if I committed anything, you can roll back the tape with them and get that committed in writing, right? Okay, thank you guys. Also want to say to all of you, we thank you, board members, for the time you put in at this organization. I think in billable hours, some days feel like you probably, if you build your hours, would be making more than your day jobs with us at NOACA. So we appreciate you spending those time with us and doing all the good work you do on policy development. Today we're going to focus on water-specific policy, and as it specifically relates to transportation. The challenges that we face, but the opportunities we face. We're going to talk a bit about, I think, what's something about Back to the Future. As I've talked to our team members last night at dinner who are going to be up in the panel, you're going to hear a lot about lessons they've drawn over, in two cases, two businesses that have been at work a century in our community on the Maritime front, and things that they've learned in the past, but things that they've got to offer for our future. So it's an exciting time. Very quickly, let me queue up just to set the stage and prime the pump, and if I could get just somebody to give a click unless I'm missing it. Who do we got? Who's my lifeline? There we go. All right, the magic Svengali here. Great Lakes by the numbers. Listen, folks, you guys know this story. We are 21% of the world's freshwater supply. I think we take that seriously here. It's our greatest asset without question in this region, is the fact that we're sitting on a fifth of the world's freshwater supply. Overall coastline miles, you can see it, 11,000 miles of total Great Lakes coastline and 4530 on the U.S. state side. You could drive to Seattle and back to Seattle again, and you'd be still going on our lakes in terms of your overall lake lineage. Great Lakes watershed is home to over 100 million people here in the 8 U.S. states and our 2 Canadian provinces to the north that are in the Seaway area and around the Great Lakes. We're drinking water for 40 million people. We host a huge economy here. 51 million jobs tied to the Great Lakes, a $6 trillion economy. What does that mean? It means if you took all the economies in the world and you actually pulled out the Great Lakes economy from this U.S. economy, if you pulled out that Great Lakes region, we would be third in the world. Next to ourselves, the United States, China second, but the Great Lakes region represents itself a $6 trillion economy. Think about that. Think about what an amazing place this is with the amazing economic potential it's got. Third largest in the world by GDP standards. You can see it out in front of our own port. Dave Gutheil is going to talk more about it from the Port of Cleveland and also our partners at the Port of Lorraine, what they're doing, what they're moving in terms of container cargo business. But it's a balance of uses. As we see on our own riverfront here in the Cuyahoga River, we see a balance of uses of maritime, obviously the return of kayaking, rowing, and other things. If you were this week, happened to be last weekend over at an incredible regatta we had for rowing, the head of the Cuyahoga, over 2,000 people participated, and people from multiple states, from multiple colleges and high schools came in, and adult rowing clubs came in to the Cuyahoga River region. Go ahead. So it's not just about this river valley, obviously the Black River, the Chagrin River, but these 8 lake counties. And to our friends in our adjacent counties that aren't exactly lake line, you're still in this Great Lakes economy, but these 8 Great Lakes counties represent a third of the state of Ohio's tourism dollars. It's a huge, huge economy, $20 billion in all. All you have to do is read the news of today. This last week, another new ship, the American Cruise Line, coming into Port of Cleveland. And again, hauling up here in Cleveland with visitor destinations and arrivals here on our shores. And you're going to hear from one of our partners with the Victory Line that pulled in yesterday, and he actually rode the Victory Line in, John Wagoner, to Cleveland. Good way to come to Cleveland, John, a different way to go. Let's go to the next slide. But anyways, we are on the map. Clevelanders, we were just listed a national recreation Trail. It's a part of the Secretary of Interior's designation of the Cuyahoga River as a national recreation trail. But you think about how far we have come. And again, all of our rivers in the watershed in the Great Lakes Basin, but in the Cuyahoga River it's special because you'll see from the next slide and you remember where we've been. A river that burned, but a river that returned. That lower slide is actually the introduction by ODNR of sturgeon fish back into the river valley. It's a pretty incredible thing that we are actually introducing freshwater fish back into the Cuyahoga River because it's clean and the fish are part of the aquatic system. So again, a balance of uses, but moving from past where a river that burned is a river now that has returned, and we've delisted over and over, checking off the boxes toward the areas of concern. That area of concern has lingered with us since the 80s when the river pollutants went out to the Great Lakes and polluted. We are fast moving toward a delisting of that as an EPA area of concern. And so we also talk about our future and the generations that come behind us. This is their future. So here in our region, we've been working with something called the Freshwater Institute, educating kids about what they have in front of them in the river valley and what they have in front of them in the Great Lakes, becoming the future stewards and becoming the future workforce in this economy, in the blue economy. We started in our case in Cuyahoga County, getting kids, fourth graders, swim ready so that they're water culture ready. Then they can get on the river, they can get on the lake, and they can experience what it's about and be the future workers of some of the companies you're going to hear from in a minute. That's the Freshwater Institute. And I think that cues us up for our panelists. Just a few things we've been up to was something we started with the Freshwater Institute, but I want you to hear what our panelists have been up to for years, and some of them decades, and a couple of them centuries. So without further ado, I'm going to call them up, and we're going to take the next hour and hear about the water economy. So if you would, join me on stage, John Altenberg. He's the president and CEO of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Seaways Initiative. David Gutheil. He's the interim president and CEO of the chief commercial officer of the Port of Cleveland. Tiffany McClellan. She's the executive director of the Lorraine Port and Finance Authority. Joe Stark. He's the chairman, CEO of the Great Lakes Group. You might know them as Great Lakes Towing as well. John Wagoner, he's the one who came in by ship on his own Victory Cruise line yesterday to Cleveland. Victory Cruise was ported out in the Port of Cleveland yesterday. John Wagoner, join us. And Brendan O'Connor, he's the COO of Interlake Maritime Services, a company that's been around literally a century in our community. You might also know him as Interlake Steamship Company. So thank you, John, David, Tiffany, Joe, and John and Brendan. Let's get on with the show. Wow, we got a lineup here. John, I'm going to start with you, right next to me, my Chicago friend. Tell us a little bit. Why don't you each real quick, go down the line, just talk about your organization, and then we'll come back with some questions.
All right, John Altenberg. I'm the president and CEO of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. We are an organization of 360 mayors from both sides of the border, U.S. and Canada, founded by Mayor Miller of Toronto and Mayor Daley of Chicago. Really, it's about the socioeconomic and environmental health of the region. And one of the biggest things we're working on right now is our economic transformation strategy, which I can talk a little bit more about in a few minutes.
David.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. My name is Dave Gutheil. I'm currently the interim president and CEO and chief commercial officer of the port for another week and a half, at least, until Jeff Epstein starts as our new CEO here in a couple weeks. Many of you know about the Port of Cleveland. We're, 23,000 jobs are tied to the port in our activities, over $7 billion in economic activity. And we do more than just maritime cargo. We touch a number of different pieces of the community: Cleveland Lakefront Nature Preserve, the Irishtown Bend Project, and soon to be the Cheers Project. So looking forward to introducing to everybody what else we do.
Thank you, David. Tiffany, you're...
Tiffany McClelland with the Lorraine Port and Finance Authority. Happy to be here today. Our agency, we're located about 30 miles west here of Cleveland, a little bit smaller of a port than Dave, but a three-pronged mission where we focus on the maritime commerce, economic development, and public access to our waterways. You see that in just about everything we do. A harbor where we have 4 terminal operators that ultimately contributes to about a $300 million economic impact in our area, as well as really focusing on making sure we have public access and the balancing of the commerce side with the access at our facility, which is Black River Landing in Lorain. So really excited to talk more about that.
Joe Stark, I'm CEO of Great Lakes Group. We operate a fleet of harbor towing tugs, ship assist tugs. You usually see them, the little green and red boats with the G on the stack. We help the ships in and out of the rivers, not just here in Cleveland, but there's 40 tugs between Duluth, Minnesota, and Buffalo, New York, strategically located in 14 different ports. And just as importantly, or maybe in this context even more importantly, we operate a full-service shipyard here in Cleveland, and we provide ship repair and maintenance services to all different kinds of vessels and build. We've been building new tugs since 2017 and have built 25 boats since we started construction of, went into that market in 2007. So look forward to talking about how we relate to our customers at the ports.
John?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. As Chris said, I think I'm the only guy here today that came in by boat, was able to board our cruise ship in Sault Ste. Marie, ride over, dock here in Cleveland. So Victory Cruise Lines operates two 190-passenger vessels that we cruise on all 5 Great Lakes. Our most popular trip is a Chicago-Toronto, Toronto-Chicago, covering all 5 of the Great Lakes. The good news is we'll make 29 stops here in Cleveland in 2026, which makes us, I think, their favorite customer for the port, our #1 customer. Our guests come from all over, but mostly domestic. And the cruise business is growing quite fast, and we can talk about that, but we're glad to be here, and thanks for rolling out the blue water for us. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Brendan?
Thanks, Chris. I'm Brendan O'Connor. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Interlake Maritime Services. We are a privately held entity that operate about 10 legacy large self-unloading assets that range in size from 639 foot to 1,013 and a half feet long. We move upwards of about 20 million tons of bulk free-flowing cargo a year. We also own some other Great Lakes entities, the SS Badger that goes between Ludington, Michigan and Manitowoc, Wisconsin. We own the original Sulak Boat Tour business up at Sault Ste. Marie, which is a small ferry passenger operation. And we own Pier Marquette Shipping, which is a small tug barge operation. We support the steelmaking, the construction, the road safety, and the utility industries, and we've been in existence for a little over 110 years. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm thrilled to represent the 500 employees that work in our operation here on the Great Lakes. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for those introductions. I'm known to go right off script, so I'm going to do that. I was fascinated by a few things we talked about yesterday as a prelude to this. And Brendan, I just wanted to ask you, shipbuilding has happened on the Great Lakes in part because of your company. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about Mark Barker and the shipbuilding that was happening in Sturgeon Bay.
Thanks, Chris. We were lucky enough to build a new ship here on the Great Lakes. We did that, and it was launched in 2022. That ship is the Mark W. Barker. It's the first ship that's been built on the Great Lakes in 38 years. There's a number of reasons for that, but most notably is that there's tremendous barriers to entry, largely cost-driven. The other great benefit that we have is that you think about the ocean and the recovery in terms of capital, you have to think about replacing that ship every 25 years, but you think about the salt water being relatively cannibalistic. And for us on the Great Lakes, it's the blessing of allowing these ships to live a much longer life than our ocean counterparts. But we are fortunate because we're privately held. The family owns the largest tug and barge interest on the East and Gulf coasts. They own a fast ferry operation that goes between Atlantic Highlands over to Wall Street, primarily the financial district. They go to Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard. They also own a large diving and salvage company. So I'm trying to illustrate that they're committed to the long term. We have approached the market with that same, focus, which is not looking at the next 2, 3, 5 years. We're looking at this business for decades ahead. So it allowed for us to reach an agreement with a wonderful partner, Cargill, that provided for us to be able to build this new ship, which was very, very meaningful, not just to demonstrate our commitment to the long term, but also to build what is the most technologically advanced, the most capable. She is also built where she could carry things like containers. If the market should change, it's not just what we would call sort of a one-trick pony, which is bulk, free-flowing cargo. She's able to carry project cargo. So if we, in fact, I have carried large tubular material for Gutheil, a steel company that's located in Monroe, Michigan, and brought that up to the head of the lakes. She operates unlike most others in that category, but again, is doing so with an incredibly responsible footprint and from an environmental standpoint. So we believe in the industry. We would love to think that we could build more, but it takes a long-term commitment from our customers as well to be responsible and not put the other parts of our business at risk. But we're committed and we're delighted to be in the space.
What's the length of that ship, by the way?
639 feet. It has, it's 78 feet wide. It has 878,000 cubic feet of internal capacity. It does not have slopes in it. We run large, think of them as tractors, Caterpillar 938s that outside of the essentially the material flows, and that which doesn't go into the gates, which feeds a hopper and a belt system to discharge, we push the material into those hoppers with tractors. So maximizing, that ship carries like something that's 150 foot longer because of the improved cubic capability. So a wonderful addition to our fleet.
It's just impressive that a company, I know Mayor Castelli, he's on our board if he's out here, he knows your company because you're located in Middleburg Heights, but a company out of Middleburg Heights building a Laker ship at the Sturgeon Bay and bringing it home to Cleveland with transport. Just to switch over to the tourism side of this, John, why do we see more and more and more Laker cruise ships showing up at the Cleveland port? What's with the popularity of late? Dave Gutheil tells me that it's an exploding industry. Why is it exploding?
It's an exploding industry. It's interesting if you look at the statistics. In 2008, there was only 4,500 passengers. Last year, there was 22,500. We expect a 10% increase. And Chris has really driven off a couple of things. I mean, there are people, as we all get older, and a lot of us are baby boomers, and we start to retire, we've already been all over the world. You've taken, a transatlantic cruise, you've taken a couple of river cruises, you've been to Tahiti and everything else. But as we get older, we want to learn more about our country. And so what we found, Chris, the primary drivers are people want to learn about their country. Very few people know anything about the Great Lakes. Yeah. In fact, if you survey most of the U.S. and said, have you ever been on Lake Superior? They'd say, no. They don't know about the wrecks on Lake Superior. They don't know about the clean water. Some of them probably never watched the Jacques Cousteau movie about diving on the wrecks in Lake Superior. And even for myself, it was fascinating. About 15 years ago, Great Lakes Cruising Coalition flew my wife and myself to 3 ports a day for 7 days. And I was just fascinated as a mariner with the history of the Industrial Revolution on the Great Lakes. Operating our paddle wheel steamboats on the Mississippi River, we all know about the southern industry, cotton, and everything that happened there, and it's fascinating. But the Great Lakes are just a hidden gem, and so now you've seen where we at Victory Cruise Lines have 2 boats that spend almost the entire season here. We start in April and run all the way through October. Viking has got 2 boats on here, Pearl Mist, and so it's growing. It's a growing industry, and our guests are just blown away. If you go to our website and look at our reviews, all 5-star reviews, and most people will say, I just didn't know the Great Lakes had that to offer. And when I was sitting with someone the other day and I told them about the Great Lakes cruises, they said, well, who would want to go to Cleveland, Detroit? And I said, well, let me just tell you about Cleveland, Detroit. I said, when's the last time you were there? And they said, well, 20 years ago. And it was interesting because at dinner or lunch or somebody, we were talking about what used to be the Rust Belt is no longer the Rust Belt. It's a thriving society. And as a runner, love running around your city and love running around the port. And our guests get to see all that. And when you look at our cruises, not to, turn this into a marketing spiel, but we hit all the great cities. I mean, we're the only boat to dock at Navy Pier, and then we hit Mackinac Island, and then you hit Sault Ste. Marie, and then you come to Cleveland and Detroit and Niagara Falls and end up in Toronto. All blockbuster cities that just blow people away. And the shore excursions we have gives them a great overview.
Well, we appreciate your turn and turnstiles at the Rock Hall and the Science Center and other places. So, Joe, we were talking a little bit, just a moment of, it was a scary moment, but I had to call Dave Gutheil at 6 in the morning because a social media feed showed a Laker that came in sideways up the Cuyahoga and landed right on the bank, well, tied up in between the two banks. It shows why towing and piloting matters, right? But can you tell us about what exactly the tow business is all about? And I'm also interested in the fact that you are also building ships on the Old River Channel. So those two things.
We are. We're building harbor tugs for ourselves, for our own service. But one of the services we provide is emergency response for groundings, which was an interesting one on the Cuyahoga River about a month ago. And we provide ice-breaking services to keep the shipping lanes open in the harbors and in the slips and around the docks. And we provide transportation services for the pilots going to and from the ships. But our primary business is ship assist, and that is critical. You can consider a tug like infrastructure, just like a crane or any kind of weight handling equipment at a port. The ship doesn't come in without the tug, and it doesn't leave without the tug. The cargo they're not able to unload the ship unless it first comes to the dock. So we provide that service to the ports, although our customers are the ship owners, like Brendan's company is a big customer of ours, and they're the ones who we contract with. Truly, our customers are the ports, because the ports need the tugs to provide the services to their customers, or the ships coming and going from the docks. So that's our primary mission. And then, of course, the shipyard. We started building new vessels in 2007. Through this year, we're somewhere around 26 different boats of all different sizes and missions. But over the last 10 years, or 8 years now, we've built 10 new tugs for our fleet. Our current program for fleet renewal is to replace our vintage G-tugs, which, if you've ever seen them on the Cuyahoga, they're built between 1900 and 1935. They were originally steam. They were repowered during the late 40s and 50s with World War II surplus diesel engines. Not a great look, not the image that we're looking for, those black stacking boats. So we're trying to replace those as quickly as possible with new tugs. So Brendan mentioned the fresh water, which is a gift. It's a blessing, but it's also a curse, because the tugs last much longer than the machinery and equipment, and you try to keep fixing them and running them, but pretty soon you find yourself making handmade replacement parts, and the cost of maintenance and repair through the roof. So building new tugs right here in Cleveland, most of you probably don't even know it, right down at the foot of West 45th Street, there's a shipyard right on the south side of the Old River Channel across from Cargill Salt Mine, where the Interlake ship Mark W. Barker comes in to load with salt. We're right there on the other side of the river, and a lot of people don't realize that we have that kind of industry right here in Cleveland, building tugboats. So, in our fleet, again, is 40 boats stationed in 14 ports between Duluth, Minnesota, and Buffalo. So it's not just Cleveland. We have tugs stationed in each one of these ports strategically, and as we build new boats, we cycle the old ones out and replace them with these new boats. So it's very important to the economy because we're serving the ports across the Great Lakes.
And it's hometown right here in Cleveland, 125 years. Between the two of you, you got 250
That's
years
right.
of service.
Established in 1899 by John D. himself.
Yeah.
And original shareholders included the industrialists of that age. Cleveland was the center of the Industrial Revolution, and all the biggest names in the Industrial Revolution, the Hoyts, the Steinbrenners, the Hannas,
Yeah.
all those people were from Cleveland, and they were shareholders of Great Lakes Towing
We don't like to talk
Company
about
at the
those
time.
damn Yankees, but Steinbrenner had a site right next door to you guys. Yeah. But impressive, the company work you guys do, both in the build-out and the transport work, and all of you. I want to switch a little to the balance of uses in ports, and Joe's company does go to your port, Tiffany and Lorraine, ours in Cuyahoga, out to Ashtabula and Toledo and all of the Great Lakes he talked about. But Tiffany, there's a, and we feel it on the Cuyahoga River, but on the Black River, there's a demand for a balance of uses. I mean, you and I were talking last night about how your port's actually running concerts and events down in the Black River at the mouth and other things. Tell us about how you're managing kind of that balance of use in the Lorraine port.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back decades at this point, where there's always been this desire to have the commerce, the maritime commerce side of things, and really develop out a harbor that could be active and have the tonnage coming through and remain the active harbor. And then also looking at the sites and redeveloping as some industry started to leave the community. So we have a couple of sites in Lorraine, and in particular one that the Port Authority owns that used to be a rail line and now is known as Black River Landing. So LTV Steel, as they closed, they donated this property to the port. And this is 25 years ago at this point. And I think it's just really important to note that the shift in really having a balance of public access and having a commercial active port, it hasn't happened overnight. So there's been this desire to ensure that people could get onto the water, that they could get to the water, but also making sure that we still have that. So the commercial side. So we support our port operators. I think a good distinguishing difference between the Cleveland port and the Lorraine port is to say that our operators, all four of our terminal operators, are privately owned and operated. So we do not own any of the facilities in our harbor, whereas Cleveland does, and that's a little bit of a different business model. We own some other facilities, and that's Black River Landing. Black River Landing has been transitioned from that industrial use into a recreational use. So right now, if you've ever been to Black River Landing, maybe most notably Rockin' on the River, so if anybody's come to Rockin' on the River in Lorraine, we are the #1, dare I say, I know there's some county folks in here, but dare I say the #1 tourist destination in Lorain County. And we have become a very prominent concert venue site. So we have an amphitheater. If you come visit us today, you'll see we're actually under construction. We're undergoing a $6.8 million investment into a new amphitheater facility to really enhance our downtown. Because when we looked at our community and some of these old industrial sites that were cutting off access to the water, we started to envision a way that you could tie in your downtown, tie in your waterfront assets, and make it so it was more of a benefit to your local community. But it's not just the local community that I'm talking about here, because quite frankly, just shy of 70% of attendees to our Black River Landing site are coming from outside of the city of Lorraine. So we're talking about a regional asset here that's really expanding into something pretty spectacular, and only to be better after we're completed with this investment that will be ready and open, ribbon cutting, May of 2026.
We'll be there. Everybody
right.
wants to be near the water. Fascinating conversation between you and Dave last night on a smaller port and a larger port and the differences of how you do it. And you guys know, as county commissioners, engineers, and representatives, mayors, that counties have port authorities. They don't all act the same. You have the city of Lorraine and you have the county of Lorraine, and you have, in some cases, ports are truly finance mechanisms for their respective. You might have a non-water side port in the state of Ohio, but doing a lot of interesting things. I was fascinated by the conversation about the foreign trade zones. Wondered if you could talk about that, Dave, or Tiffany, on what FTZs are and how they work.
Sure. So for those of you who aren't aware, the Port of Cleveland is what's called Foreign Trade Zone 40. Microphone, there we go.
I got you.
So foreign trade zones are avenues and programs that are used across the country to help reduce, eliminate, or delay the payment of duties on the goods that are imported into the United States. The Port Authority, as a foreign trade zone grantee, has the right to activate anyone in a number of different counties on the lakeshore: Lorain County, Cuyahoga Lake, part of Ashtabula and Geauga County, and we're now helping Summit County with a few of their activations because of some things that are going on down there. So we have a number of different companies, the biggest of which being Swagelok in Solon, that has 14 active foreign trade zone sites around Northeast Ohio. And a lot of folks aren't aware of these, or weren't until the tariff situation started about 6 months ago when President Trump's administration took office. We've done a couple different seminars highlighting the advantages of using foreign trade zone programs recently, one of which was in Lorain County at Lorain Community College, and we have a new activation that's going on there right now with a company who is using the old Ford plant on Baumhart Road out in Lorain. That will be our first activation in Lorain County as a result of that. And what they do is they bring a number of different types of cargo in, different products that are sold throughout the United States, and they're able to delay the payment of those duties on those goods, and it's a cash flow benefit for them. We just did another foreign trade zone seminar, I see Mayor Kraus here, in Solon. And Mayor, you don't know this, but it just came up last week. We now have 2 active new activations going on around Solon because of that. And, you know, just tools that port authorities have across the country, not only statewide, but federally as well, that helps customers reduce their costs in the logistics cycle. And we're really proud to help people with that. We get out in the community whenever we can. So if you are interested in having a foreign trade zone seminar, you know, please get a hold of me. I'm sure Mayor Kraus and the folks out in Lorain County would tell you the same thing. It is very beneficial to companies that are located in your own communities.
You don't have to be waterside to be at an FTZ.
You do not have to be waterside. You do not have to move your goods through the Port of Cleveland. You can move your goods through any port in the United States as long as those goods are moving in bond from those particular port locations to your facility here in Northeast Ohio.
Got it. John, since you came, well, I don't know who came the furthest between you and John, but thank you for coming to us from Chicago. I've got a couple of questions for you since I've saved you for last year. But one, tell us about overall Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway Initiative and how it binds member cities. I think we have a couple members out here even today, so
Yes, you do. Well, again, 365 members. There are counties and also cities that are involved. And it's all about collaborating together, advocating together, and educating each other on different programs. And again, it's the socioeconomic and environmental issues that are so important to our organization about keeping the way of life of why people live in this community, these communities, and maintaining that. And that's one of the reasons why we've launched an economic transformation strategy that is going to really try to bring us forward from the Rust Belt, as we're calling it, the Fresh Coast Economic Corridor.
The Fresh, and you've done this economic study. What are you finding about the Fresh Coast economics?
Well, I think what's interesting here is, and you're hearing it throughout the panel, there's incredible opportunities coming here in the next 20 to 30 years. The rest of the world is facing a lot of issues, environmental, migration of populations, et cetera, and we're uniquely positioned. You mentioned about the 20% of water that exists here of the world's fresh water, and you can't minimize that impact. While the West is burning, literally burning, the South is boiling, and the East is flooding, we're in a climate over the next 30 years there's an incredible opportunity to grow.
Leverage. Right?
However, if we don't leverage it right, we're going to be in the same situation we were before, polluting our environment, not having good jobs that are here, et cetera. We need to plan beforehand, and that's what this plan is about.
You know, leading up to this conversation today, some of us were talking yesterday, we have 4 coastlines in America, right? We've obviously got the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Gulf, but sometimes we don't think as a nation of our Great Lakes as a coastline. And I'm glad we have state representatives and senators here from Ohio today. Thank you guys for being here, because I think trying to also get our state to really see through that this is a major economic catalyst for us. And because you have them in front of me, I wanted to ask you guys about infrastructure and anybody. You know, obviously it's not just on the state of Ohio side, but it's on the U.S. federal government. We've talked about St. Lawrence Seaway being, unfortunately, we hold lesser cards than our brothers in Canada and our sisters in Canada to keep those locks open as long as we want. I know that's an issue we need to keep working on to get that container business out to the Atlantic. But talk to us generally about infrastructure in all your respective, anyone in your respective areas. I know you're advocating, so go.
Yeah, we're advocating for, specifically, we talked about building ships here in the Great Lakes. And when I talk to a lot of industry, both on the U.S. and the Canadian side, they don't think that you have the capability to do it. And we just proved that there is capability to build our ships. We need to have multimodal ship capabilities, shipping that can bring in containers. I think it's, what is it, less than a few percent of our shipping on the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence is container ships?
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%. Now think about that. That means all of those trucks that are coming in from New York, Boston, Halifax are shipping across country. They're using energy, they're polluting, they're causing dangerous highway situations, they're taking longer, and they're expensive. And we don't have an infrastructure that's built. We're under 50% capacity through the seaway. We need to build our shipping lines. We've got to increase that capacity and the seasonality of the seaway. We've got to have better deep sea ports that are on the coast of the seaway. We have incredible opportunity with, the North Pole is melting, and you're going to be seeing shipping coming over from the north. This gets us into the center of North America.
It's the cheapest, it's the most environmentally friendly way to go. And I think, Dave, in the case of the Port of Cleveland with our container business, we can get out the St. Lawrence and get to the Atlantic faster than you can out of Baltimore because of the queuing up, right?
You can move your goods door to door quicker from Cleveland to Berlin than you can going through an East Coast port. And that's because we don't have the congestion issues that the coastal ports have. But confoundingly, the St. Lawrence Seaway is completely underutilized, and I'll get to the infrastructure part here in a second. But back in the 70s, the system handled about 80 million tons a year. Last year, we handled 37.6 million tons a year. Now, a large reason for that is the containerization. Much of those goods that moved in containers, or didn't move in containers back then, now do, and they move on much bigger ships going into the coastal ports. But when we start to build these opportunities up and handle more business like that, we also have to make sure we have the infrastructure in place to handle that, which is why things like, the Port Infrastructure Development Program from a federal standpoint is very important for us to get grants. Same thing with the Ohio Maritime Assistance Program, another important program at the state level. So when we start to move more goods, we have to make sure our infrastructure is in place to handle that cargo. We were very proud to participate in the OMAP program a few years ago, and we made some updates to our bulk terminal over on Whiskey Island that enabled us to handle 2 different grades of ore and mix that ore on site before it goes up to the Cleveland Cliff Steel Mill and makes their facility more efficient. So it means more jobs for the steel mill. It means more jobs here locally for our longshoremen who are working those type of things. So infrastructure in general is important. We just broke ground last week on a $33 million project to upgrade our biggest warehouse on the port that'll take us into the next phase of how we're handling goods locally here in Cleveland.
Nice. We've got Michelle Burke from Ohio Marine Trades Association and her predecessor Ken out here today. We're talking recreational boating a lot, and I don't know, Tiffany, if you can comment on it, but have you seen an uptick in the Black River of recreational boating? I keep thinking here in the Cuyahoga River Valley, we don't have enough slips for transient boaters, and just look at I don't want to start talking about the marine outside the Browns Stadium, but the last 2 Browns games, the marina's full, right? I don't know if we have enough slips to cover how much boater traffic we have.
Yeah, I would say in general that the industry is on the rise, and that would probably go from the maritime side of things and the recreational side. So we have a couple of marinas in our harbor, and not only on the boating side, just the transient dockage and the dockage in general, but if you look at the uptick in the desire for, say, fishing tournaments. So we were host to the National Walleye Circuit Championship tournament here in the Great Lakes, and that was a great honor to have one of the largest, over 300 boats come in for a tournament. It's amazing the desire for people to start coming here and having that recreational nature. But I think this goes back to the balance of the economic development of the use of facilities as well and infrastructure needs. So if you take a look at the Lorain Harbor, you have a lot of sites that used to be heavy industrial, and as the desire of the community has shifted to those being developed into park facilities and recreation and our Black River Landing facility, you're taking the industrial nature that used to be and removing it as an opportunity from the harbor, and that's creating the need for the infrastructure investment. So now you have other properties. So in our harbor, we have plenty of other vacant properties, but they don't have the necessary infrastructure to be able to use in the same way that the other parcels like the Lorraine pellet terminal used to have. That was heavy industry back in the day. So if you look at the Lorraine harbor, it's really this huge shift. So in the year 2000, we had 14 million metric tons of material come through our harbor, a majority of that going to the steel and the construction trade industry. And in 2024, we had about 1.1 million metric tons come through our harbor. That's a vast difference over a 25-year period there. And I think part of that is as the industry is shifting and you're taking these parcels and turning them into other things and not reinvesting in the infrastructure, you can't re-engage and enhance your numbers to have that industry in your harbor anymore. So absolutely necessary component. And I have to say a big thanks to the state of Ohio for making that a focus. It's been a long time coming that the state of Ohio hasn't focused on the maritime sector and industry. And we have, for the first time in the history of the state of Ohio, an Ohio Maritime Plan. And that's really a huge step forward. And hopefully the funding will follow that.
We hope, and again, to our state reps and senators that are out here, amp up the Ohio Maritime side. You know, this is transportation infrastructure at the core. Curious just on the business side, guys, what you see in terms of needed infrastructure to help your businesses do better.
I would just, you speak about infrastructure, and we all know how expensive it is to maintain roads and what most people consider to be necessary for just the overall quality of life to get where they need to go. If you think about the efficiencies of maritime transportation, so our one of our 1,000-foot ships, we own 3, we manage a 4th one. So the Paul R. Tregurtha has been primarily engaged in utility coal. That ship could move what is the equivalent of 3,000 trucks. So if you think about the benefit, and you don't even know that it's doing it, in the sense that if your community suddenly was told that the vessel can't move that bulk material and that you can look forward to 3,000 trucks coming into your backyard, what that would do from the standpoint of maintaining the throughways, the roads, the congestion. If you look at railroad, you would have 3 unit trains with probably 2 or 3 engines apiece that would be required to move that same amount of material. So from an efficiency standpoint, in one season, which is generally about 300 days, I can do 50 trips or roughly 3 million tons of material from the head of the lakes down to the Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago market. So it gives you a little bit of a perspective about how efficient and how beneficial our industry is from a mode standpoint relative to the others.
Yeah. John, what are you thinking, Joe?
Yeah, so for our infrastructure, I mean, as the cruise industry continues to grow, our guests will get more demanding about having terminals, cruise terminals. Most of the docks we pull into on the Great Lakes are commercial docks. There's no waiting area, no air conditioning. If it's raining, no place for them to get out of the rain. And the interesting thing is that cruises on the Great Lakes are much more expensive than other cruises throughout the world. The average ticket price is between $7,000 and $40,000. Wow. Very expensive, and it's because partly cost of docking, infrastructure, everything else. But because you're attracting high-end clients, they will simply demand more amenities than are currently available.
Gotcha. Thank you. Joe, what do you need to keep the towing industry going?
Well, when you're operating a fleet of antiques, you'd like to have them replaced in some way, shape, or form. But more importantly, I think for us, we're trying to expand to the west and build a tugboat factory. We're working through all kinds of hoops, specifically with the Corps of Engineers. It's very difficult. But it would be nice to expand our tugboat construction activities so that we could build more than one tug a year.
You need land?
we own the land, we just can't do anything with it because we've got to bulkhead it.
Got it.
And we're trying to do that, things like that. Everybody has these issues, and it just takes a long time to work through it.
As we think through this, I mean, there are some governmental lobbyists out here too. I mean, we worked pretty hard to get the Irishtown Bend bulkheaded out, and we did that well. Dave, congratulations. But up the Old River Channel where you've got commerce going, we need to satisfy that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of bulkhead issues in the Old
Yeah.
River Channel, and,
Yeah.
and that
expensive.
sand dock is like the nicest beach in Cleveland.
Yeah, right. Hey, I want to, if we got a live mic, we can put out to the audience. I'm going to ask Emily Baca, our Freshwater Institute Director, to run it if anybody's got a question from the field. There it is. But let me, as we're transitioning, ask John, okay, we talked a lot about the opportunity in the $6 trillion Great Lakes economy. What are our biggest threats?
Well, I think we were talking a little bit earlier with Tiffany, some of our antiquated approaches to investing in infrastructure. Yeah. We were talking about just dredging, the fact that the formula for dredging to determine the kind of dredging that she's going to need in her port, you're not looking at forward thinking of what's the possibility of new industry coming into the region, but it's tonnage that is already existing already. So I think the lack of understanding of the opportunity in this region is probably our biggest threat, not understanding what is going to happen over the next 30 years in our economy, in our environment, with population shifts, et cetera, and not planning ahead for it.
And I would say, and I hope this isn't too much of a plug, but I think we have two wonderful advocates in the Congress that are seasoned on issues. David Joyce on the shoreline matters, he's getting in, he's really delivering out of Lake County and beyond, and certainly Marcy Kaptur to the far west. I mean, those two have been on it with infrastructure. But we need to give them the messaging. And I think NOACA as an MPO and the state of Ohio need to message what is that infrastructure that we need. I see a question out in the crowd. Do I have one, Emily? Let's take about 10 minutes of questions. If we can.
Hello, Kevin Grippy from the City of Mentor. My question specifically is for John Wagner. I'm fascinated by your business. Can you give us examples, both positive and negative, how global climate change or season change has affected your business?
Yeah, I would say today is a great example. I couldn't believe I was sailing on the lakes and it was 82 degrees, 56 in the morning. But, you know, having the season stay open, longer, periods, keeping the St. Lawrence Seaway open, we're extending our season. And that seasonality is working out well. As we said, in the south, it's simply so hot. So as people are looking for other places to cruise and stay domestically, the Great Lakes is great. Our falls fill up very quickly. I think our last 8 trips were completely sold out, and it's all because changing the color, the seasonality, and I would also say the great hospitality that everybody receives. But yeah, from an environmental point of view, as we experience global warming, you guys up on the Great Lakes here were all the beneficiary of it.
Yeah, today's a beautiful day to pull
Beautiful
into the Port
day.
of Cleveland, right? I think we have Mayor Klein out there, Orange Village.
Well, I don't have to introduce myself. Thank you.
There you go.
I was really intrigued by what Brendan O'Connor was talking about. Back in 2001, there was a conference here with architects in Northeast Ohio and representatives from the Dutch. We had a design competition and they were the judges. But what they came and talked about, I found fascinating, and nothing came of it. And they had this idea of building what they called fast ships that were slightly smaller, that could carry tonnage, that would go from the blue water to the lake water. And they were designed essentially to navigate through the canal system on the St. Lawrence and get to the center part of the country. The idea of these ships is such a great one that could jumpstart shipbuilding in the Great Lakes, because we could design and build them here and then send them out to the world. We could become the seafaring nation that others were back in the Renaissance. How might we do that? How might we reclaim that opportunity? And I want to throw one more complexity to this, and that is, given the fact that we have polar ice melt and we're going to see opportunity for ships to navigate over the globe from the North Pole south. Has there any thought been given to creating a canal that connects Hudson Bay to the Great Lakes? And obviously that would take an immense amount of energy, but certainly better than an oil pipeline.
You can see the mayor was a designer as well. He's an architect by background, so make no small plans. Who's got that? Anybody?
I could just touch on the challenge of building. So we worked very hard for, I think I mentioned to somebody recently, I think it ultimately was maybe between 4 and 5 years that it required us to negotiate to ultimately come to an agreement to build the ship that we put into service here a few years ago. I think the concept of short sea shipping is a wonderful one. I find it difficult for anybody to argue against it, to reduce congestion, to allow for a more efficient means of getting around. The one of the choke points or the constraints, I think, for the Seaway, at least my humble opinion, is that you have a pilotage requirement, so you do have constraints, limitations with regard to the throughput or volume that can move through the Seaway. And I thought that Dave Gutheil made a wonderful point earlier talking about the tonnages that have changed. There's been a tremendous amount of investment, but I do think that you have some physical limitations that would reduce your ability to achieve what I think is great. I think it would be wonderful to see an increase in a maritime focus, but I think most people here who follow history would know that no great nation or entity has ever maintained that power without having a really strong maritime presence. And if you look at the number of ships in the U.S. merchant fleet, which, by the way, gets a great deal of attention, certainly the current administration is promoting the Ships Act and trying to, bolster and encourage U.S. shipyards, labor, and everyone to work together, which, by the way, is very, very collaborative and cooperative. I think we're all very excited about the potential. But the current U.S. shipbuilding capability does not allow for there to be 300 ships built in any short order. I think you just wouldn't be able to attain that. The Great Lakes also doesn't get nearly the attention. An interesting fact, and I'd encourage you to look this up, the incredibly important part of our system are the locks at Sault Ste. Marie. They're going to spend $3 billion to ultimately replace and add another 1,000-foot capable lock. So in terms of a security threat, if somebody were to cause an issue with the locks at Sault Ste. Marie, it would devastate our country. Not the Great Lakes, not Michigan, not Ohio, our country. You would see the unemployment rate go to 24% in 6 months if you shut down the locks at Sault Ste. Marie. So that critically important second 1,000-foot size lock plays a part that few people fully comprehend. So again, the Great Lakes Basin, we say we move the building blocks of America. All of the heavy industrial production, including the 16 million cars that are produced a year, are largely dependent on the Great Lakes and our wonderful freshwater system. So it gives you some things to think about.
Well, thank you guys for actually contributing to the shipbuilding business. I hope we can get more to that as this country goes, as more shipbuilding. As we Back to the Future, we've done it before, we can do it again. Dave, you had something to say on that,
Yeah, I
and
just
Joe.
wanted to piggyback on what Brendan was saying, and in a question you asked before, what's the biggest risk, or why aren't we changing, et cetera. The biggest risk, I think, from a system standpoint is complacency. We've been doing, for the most part, in the St. Lawrence Seaway system, the same thing for more than 50 years, and we've seen tonnage go down. I know it's probably a bad time to make a baseball analogy, but one of my favorite movies is Moneyball, and there's a quote in Moneyball when Brad Pitt is talking to one of his old scouts, for those of you who have seen the movie, and trying to figure out a different way to do things. He said, adapt or die. And if we don't adapt, we're going to continue to die a slow death from a maritime standpoint in the Great Lakes and the system until we start making some of these changes to address seasonality, to address shipbuilding, and to address some of the other things that are holding us back. We need to think more creatively to try to solve some of these problems.
Thank you, David. Joe, anything to add to that?
No, the idea of the fast ships is it's a concept, and it didn't fly at the time. I think it's something that could be looked at again. Those ships were intended, they're much smaller. They're like 400 feet instead of 630 feet, and they were multi-geared type ships so they could handle all their own cargoes, but it was break bulk and containers and commodities too, grain, coal, aggregates, all those things. They were multi-use coastal vessels. For whatever reason at the time it didn't fly, but I think there's probably room for that now, especially along the coast.
Yep. One more question here, our former county commissioner.
You know, Cleveland has always been the best location in the nation, and the Great Lakes goes right along with that. And I'd like to say to you, John, thank you for bringing the victory lines here. We have needed that so much. I have just one simple question, and that is, how long does the St. Lawrence Seaway stay open? You said 300 days. Mm-hmm. It's only closed for 65 days?
Seaway typically opens late March, early April for transatlantic shipping and closes right around January 1st. This is getting incrementally longer, but there's other lock systems throughout the world that stay open year-round. But we have to figure out a way to do the same thing.
We got a deep discussion about this last night, and you guys said of the 15 or 16 locks, the mass majority are controlled by our Canadian
Yes,
partners.
there's 15 locks on the St. Lawrence Seaway till you get through the Welland Canal around Niagara Falls. 13 of those are owned by the Canadians. The U.S. owns 2. The U.S. also owns the Sioux locks up in the northern Great Lakes.
So that those ship movements from Cleveland's port with container business out to St. Lawrence, it gets interrupted for the months you talk about. I always quip that it's the hockey season that the Canadians close down the system for. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a binational effort too. We should be working with our heads of state on opening that lock because it would help the interlake ports. This is, I hope you guys are feeling we've learned something here. It's a fascinating conversation. Emily Bach, I just want to reintroduce her. She's with the Freshwater Institute. Got to thank Congresswoman Chantel Brown, who helped us in the Cleveland Foundation get this launched. But you're all welcome to the Freshwater Institute. We want to grow in the 5-county region with organizations that want to be a part of this. And also just a quick shout out, because John, I want to come back to you with a final question. But Mayor Gale out here and Mayor Burke, who are in the audience, both won a Water Equity Award with you up in Milwaukee recently. Yes. And so thank you, Water Warriors, for doing your part on your shorelines and in the cities. We could go all day, but we've got a couple of awards to present. So I just want to go down the line and just ask quickly, one, we are a metropolitan planning organization. We deal in transportation, infrastructure, and advocacy. And so tell us what we ought to be keeping our eye on the ball on. That's one question. The other question is jobs development and workforce training. Answer either of those or any of them if you like, but I'll start with you, John. Where should we be going as a group that can lobby for infrastructure and plan sound transportation systems on the water?
Well, I think we have to understand what type of industries are going to be moving here, how rapidly they're going to be moving here, and what type of infrastructure we need to be planning for to plan for the future. And that ties into your other question about workforce training, et cetera. Without that competitive intelligence of what type of industries are going to move here, what industries we want to move here, we can't prepare for what that means. And I think one of our biggest dangers is not supplying the infrastructure we need for a highway H2O.
Highway H2O.
Yes.
Anybody on the job front? We got a clap out there from someone. Yeah, please go.
Go ahead, Joe.
As far as, I think if you asked anybody in this room what's the biggest challenge that anybody has, it's workforce development, finding good people who want to work. The skilled trades in particular is very difficult. So finding people with the skills to weld, mechanics, electricians, very difficult, and the seagoing people as well, the people on the tugs, getting them, there's 5-6 maritime academies in the country. They're not being utilized to their full capacity. We need more licensed officers and deckhands, unlicensed people to man our ships and man our tugs.
Just a note on that, we've been doing job sort of speed dating with high school job seekers and how they can learn about the maritime economy. Some of your companies have been involved in that. And
for years and years and years.
Yeah, and Tri-C is looking to get deeper into maritime work too. So I think we've got a future with you. Go ahead.
Chris, we sponsor Argonaut, a high school here in Cleveland, and couldn't be any more proud of that relationship and put those young men and women aboard our ships in sort of a cadet designation, allowing them to earn a decent living or get the exposure to understand the industry, which may prove to be a wonderful recruiting tool as well. But the tough thing, and I would lean on the Coast Guard and some of the regulatory entities, it's not an easy process, and it should be easier. So for somebody, I have a son that's 22 that works aboard our ships. He didn't have the same challenges waiting for a document, but if somebody said, boy, I'd really like to work on a boat or a vessel, a commercial vessel in operation, it could take them 4 or 5 months to get through the process of getting a Coast Guard credential. But just to put things in perspective, it's not a normal job, so you're getting paid a premium to be away from your friends and family. You may end up working 7 months of the year, which doesn't sound too bad to think you're going to get 5 months of vacation. But when you're working, you're working. You're working 7 days a week. My son averages somewhere between 75 and 90 hours a week. But he and anyone on an entry-level basis, if you're willing to work, you could probably command up to $70,000 your first year in the business without any specialized training. So that's pretty exceptional. And rest assured, it's not given to them. They earn it. But it's just, I think it's unknown to the extent of what a great opportunity it is to support a family and to provide. So that's a plug. Come apply with us.
And I would just continue to encourage you elected officials to get to know these folks, because you've given tours of your ships, you've done job training, you've done job experiences for high school students and beyond. And thank you for what you are putting into the blue economy and this maritime economy. Brendan O'Connor, John Wagner, Joe Stark, Tiffany McClellan, David Gutheil, and John Altenberg. Let's give it up for our panelists today. Thank you, everybody. Really, really appreciated your insights, and I hope everybody took something from that. This is a burgeoning water economy, and if we do it right, we got a growth future. We have a couple of other orders of business, and thank you again, panelists. Could have gone all afternoon with you. But we have two special awards, and I want to bring up Grace to give those awards with me as we transition here. I wanted to give a shout out to former NOACA Executive Director Howard Mayer. See him out there today. Hello, Howard. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for staying involved. One of the highlights of this annual meeting is bestowing two very important awards. And the first one is the Walter Ehrenfeld Award for an Outstanding Regional Contribution, which we affectionately call the Wally Award. For those of you who knew Mayor Ehrenfeld, former board member at NOACA, a leader at NOACA, and a former mayor of Strongsville. His family had a farm. They sold their meats at the West Side Market, and he was a true regionalist who believed in this place. So our beloved longtime board member, we named the Wally Ehrenfeld Award after him, the Wally Award. NOACA has given this award since 2004, and we're pleased to have several past recipients here today. If anybody is a past recipient, you want to raise a hand here? Hello, past recipients. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, thank you. So I am delighted to announce the first of two awards. The Ehrenfeld Award is to somebody who embodies and lives the concept of regional contribution. You've known him. I'm going to read a couple things about him before I bring him up here. But this is a gentleman who currently serves as a senior advisor for both the Ohio Land Bank Association and the Western Reserve Land Conservancy. So now you know him. His name is Jim Rokakis. He spent almost his entire career in public service focusing on policies and programs that improve the lives of the people of Ohio. He served as Cleveland City Council member for 19 years, Cuyahoga County Treasurer for 14 more. His work during the housing collapse from 2000 to 2010 led to the creation of the Cuyahoga County Land Bank, and eventually 60 more land banks across Ohio. For county commissioners in the NOACA region that have land banks, you can appreciate this gentleman. He literally wrote the book on land banks. And when he retired from his career in public service, he never retired. He kept going with the Land Bank and the Western Reserve Land Conservancy. He's shown us how to do it. In fact, I met with the State Land Bank director recently at Ohio Commissioners Association. They said Jim Rokakis literally wrote the book. He's one person who was nominated for the award, and the person who nominated him said Jim Rokakis is a passionate Clevelander, a committed regionalist, and one of Ohio's most impactful public servants. His career spans decades of innovative collaborative work that has transformed how communities across Northeast Ohio, particularly within the NOACA region, approach infrastructure, land use, and equitable development. The result of Jim's regional infrastructure coordination has resulted in Ohio attracting hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for brownfield remediation and commercial corridor revitalization. Simply put, Jim Rokakis exemplifies what it means to be a public servant in pursuit of a stronger, more connected region. His work has not only improved the physical landscape of Northeast Ohio, it has strengthened the civic fabric that ties the communities together. And for these reasons, we are honored to present the 2025 Wally Ehrenfeld Award for regional contribution to Jim Rokakis. Congratulations, Jim.
Thank you so much. I knew Wally as a mayor and also as a West Side Market stand operator. He was a great guy, and I'm honored to accept this in his name. You know, so we started with one land bank here. We now have 70, Chris, we're up to 70. I've organized probably 3/4 of them. We've raised over $2 billion for blight remediation and brownfield remediation. We've taken down over 80,000 vacant and abandoned properties in the state, and we've cleared over 1,000 commercial and industrial sites. And the land bank under Gus Frangos was largely received as the best land bank in the country. I would tell you that land banks have shifted their focus to something that should interest all of us, and that is housing affordability. We've received $180 million in the last two General Assemblies. Thank you to the state reps and senators here through something called the Welcome Home Ohio program. And locally, I'm involved in an effort with the executive, Mayor Bibb. We hope to announce in the next month or two, one, possibly two modular home builders who are going to build factories in Cleveland. So I was sitting with Mayor Blackwell. We brought properties in for Mayor Blackwell. The homes came all the way from Unibuilt in Dayton. But we hope to be manufacturing homes right here in Cleveland. And the goal stated by both the mayor and the county executive is 500 homes per year. So you all do amazing work. Yep. And we'll need everybody's help. We need the help of the banks. We need the help of builders. We need the help of the cities to hopefully change our building codes and make it a little easier to do business here. But NOACA is a great organization, and I'm honored to receive this. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jim. It's fun to have you back, too. Our final award is the presentation of the Jackson Leadership Award. The Frank G. Jackson Leadership Award is named in honor of former Mayor Frank G. Jackson. It's bestowed upon a leader who has utilized their leadership skills to serve their community steadfastly and faithfully, particularly by ensuring the equitable distribution of funding throughout a region. And this year's recipient, if we can call him up, is the Honorable Michael Dylan Brennan, the Mayor of University Heights. Michael is joined by his wife Gina here today. Hello, Gina. And Mayor Brennan is retiring from NOACA with us because he's decided to move on from his career as mayor, which has been a stellar one, but he's been the mayor of University Heights since 2018 and also the safety director. Mayor Brennan with us has steadfastly served on NOACA's board of directors and NOACA's Finance and Audit Committee and the Planning and Programming Committee. In 2018, he began those, and he stayed with us all the way through. In addition, he served as the Vice Chair and Chair of the Finance and Audit Committee in 2020 and 2021, and respectfully as the Chair of the Planning and Programming Committee this year in 2025, and as Assistant Treasurer to our organization. So he's been with us, and he puts in his time with NOACA. He's also served as a Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Council, and he bikes the bike because I was out in your community biking with you recently, Mayor. Thank you. He has been a champion for the people, particularly the underserved in his community and for the entire region by aligning with many important regional priorities, such as building his city's first 2 miles of bike lanes, collaborating and negotiating cities on the Greenway development and the Heights Regional Active Transportation Plan, winning a grant and constructing EV charging stations at University Heights City Hall, and obtaining NOACA County and ARPA funding for the redo of Cedar Road. He knows how to get it done. We're going to miss him in his post, but we're looking forward to what his future post looks like. Mayor Brennan's sense of community and desire to make the world a better place and drive his desire to work hard and address challenges facing the city and region. By the way, Mayor, rarely have I ever seen you miss a NOACA meeting, so thank you for your stellar attendance. With all the challenges out in the community, he's taken University Heights to a better place, and also our region. Thank you for the collaboration with us, and congratulations, Mayor Michael Brennan, on the Frank G. Jackson Award.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled and I'm deeply honored to accept the Frank G. Jackson Leadership Award. Thank you to CEO Grace Gallucci, Board President Chris Ronayne, the NOACA Board, everyone who selected me. It means the world to be recognized by an organization dedicated to the betterment of our region. I want to thank my wife, Gina Ventry, who is here with us today, 11 weeks on from the surgery from a bizarre gardening accident she had this summer. I also want to thank my team at University Heights City Hall, several of whom are here with us today: Deanna Bremer-Fisher, Mike Cook, Alan Pennington, Bob Perko, Katie Iconis, Brenda Mockbee, Tessa Jackson, Markel Davis, Karen Malone-Wright, and John Measley. My public service has been twofold. For 8 years, I've had the privilege of serving the people of University Heights as mayor, where no day is routine and every day is an opportunity to make real differences, from the delivery of superior services to our achievements in economic development and everything we do to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the community. It can be intense and relentless, and I don't mind saying professionally satisfying every day in a way that being a courtroom litigator only ever was on its very best days. However, my 8 years of experience on the NOACA board afforded me the opportunity to use my perspective as someone who grew up outside of Cuyahoga County, out in Ashtabula and Mahoning counties. As mayor, I look at plans and programs with a view towards the impact on our 14,000 residents. As a member of the NOACA board, I've had the opportunity to advance the interests of the whole five-county region: Lake, Geauga, Medina, Lorain, and Cuyahoga, and beyond for far greater purposes. The work we do here at NOACA, advancing transportation infrastructure while tackling its environmental consequences and fostering true regionalism, is exponentially more impactful. When we build sustainable and effective transportation infrastructure, we're not just moving people, we're creating economic opportunity. We are improving public health. We are raising the quality of life and the standard of living across 5 counties. And the scope of that influence is tremendous. As I finish my time as mayor, I'll tell you, I never expected this part of my public service to matter to me as much as it has. I came into regional planning through the door of a small first-ring suburb, thinking my focus and interests might be too narrow for this. Collaborating with fellow mayors and county commissioners and dedicated public officials from across our region, and with the NOACA staff, working together on programs and solutions that transcend our boundaries, has been the most meaningful and rewarding chapter of my public life thus far. It reminds us that our local successes are inseparable from our collective well-being. I accept the Frank G. Jackson Leadership Award not just for myself and the people of University Heights, but for the spirit of collaboration and regionalism that makes our 5-county region stronger and better when we work together. Thank you.
And now I think Grace is going to close us out. Congratulations again, Mayor Brennan and Treasurer Okakis.
Yes, that's right. This brings this program to an end. Thank you to the moderator, Executive Ronayne, and panelists for your interesting and elating conversation. And I want to thank our sponsors again for making this event turn out so well. To our judges who evaluated this year's winners for the Ernfelt and Jackson Award. I also want to recognize the NOACA Public Affairs staff who planned and carried out this event. Danielle Render, Director, her staff, Barb Baird, Stephanie Balasik, Antoine Geary, Kate Menning, and Gail Godick. Some of you know that Gail Godick retired last year. She came in this week to work on the annual meeting. That's a dedicated employee, now retired. So let's not also forget all of the NOACA staff volunteers here today who have helped put this event together, and particularly welcoming you when you came in. And that, last but not least, thanks to all of you. We appreciate your attentiveness and your graciousness. This concludes the 2025 NOACA annual meeting, and we will see you again, hopefully next year.